Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Gold with Gore podcast. You might notice we're in a studio today. We're out in the Reach TV studios in Miami. My good friend Simon Leslie's very kindly let us film over here while we're overseeing the new office. Simon I've known for many a year, from the football pitch to the business arena, and now back to football clubs. Simon, tell us a little bit about yourself. You founded obviously Inc Global many years ago. You now own a football team, and there's been a hell of a journey in between that. Tell us a bit about that journey.
It's a long time since you scored one of your crackers past me, which is a bit odd because we were on the same team.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've been in the media world. We cracked that, and then along came COVID and gave us a good kicking.
Yeah.
But it's still going strong, and our Reach TV is going strong. It's at 90 airports in the US and some global airports as well, and it's going from strength to strength. And we started off as just a sort of generic network, and now we're like the home of sports and travel.
Yeah.
So we got live sports and travel, live NFL, live NBA, tennis, soccer.
Yeah.
So nearly, I think, a dozen sports.
Yeah.
And we take it not just in the airports, we all take it in flight as well.
So let's talk about that. Reach TV, let's go back a step. You've grown a very, very successful business over a 20-year period, something like that?
28.
28-year period, grown it to best part of 100 million. And then COVID comes, stops everything. There's no flights, so you can't produce in-flight magazines. Most people sort of consolidate and wind down, and you buy a TV station.
We'd already bought the TV station in 2018.
Right, so just
But
before COVID.
it was a fledgling part of the business.
Yeah.
And because the US market came back much quicker than the rest of the world, we focused very much on the TV network, and that benefited hugely from that. But some of the other partners, CNN, which had a big network at the airport, decided to pull out, and we took advantage of that.
Yeah.
So we became opportunistic when there were lots of problems.
And that for me, I've known you for, I guess, 10 years or so. That sort of sums you up to me. So, Equanimity, your book. Tell us about the book and explain how that came about, because that was an opportunity during COVID.
Well, that was a diary of those 22 months.
Yeah.
What I went through, the challenges I faced, and I kept a journal all the way through, and I thought, well, there's so much powerful information. What I did was I think I had 52 speakers.
Yeah.
And each week, each day, people came in and they talked to the team, and I said to these guys, look, come and help me. We had everyone from the Wolf of Wall Street, Tim Story,
Yeah.
Chris Voss, Wim Hof,
Yeah.
and there's some huge names, and they all came and they helped.
It's like a who's who of business books to read.
So who's who of motivational gurus. But what I realised was, whilst I was bringing them in to help the team, they were helping me to think differently, how I was going to get through it. And I put it down in print, and 396 pages of
Yeah.
of stories which, if anyone's in business or going through challenges in business, it's like a little, I like to use the word Bible, but it's a great gospel to pick up.
And you talk about the mindset there. I remember talking to you during COVID. We had the odd call, and we were very fortunate in that we were in healthcare, so we grew quite a lot during COVID. After that first initial sort of 3 or 4 months when everything just shut down and we sort of panicked as what are we going to do? We had a fairly good COVID, if you can say that, in terms of revenue and things like that. So we worked very hard, but we were quite fortunate. And I remember talking to you, and you were saying to me how tough it had been because there were no flights flying. And we were having a conversation, and I can't remember exactly, but I was saying that, well, I've failed at a lot of things in my life. I failed my A-levels, I failed university, and you interrupted me and just said, be careful what you say, because it becomes reality, or words to that effect. And that's always stuck with me. And I just think, you were in such a tough period of your life with COVID and everything going on, yet you still had that positive mindset to reinforce it with me to keep the positive mindset. So where did you get that from?
And it helped, didn't it?
It massively helped. Massively helped.
Because I remember it clearly. I know exactly where I was. I think I was in an apartment just down the road, and we were talking about all the things that could go wrong, and I just said, doesn't matter. most people spend way too much time worrying about what could go wrong,
Yeah.
and not enough time worrying about, well, we could do this, we could go here, we could
Yeah.
achieve this. And I think there's a very simple barometer. It's like, what's the upside, what's the downside, and can I live with that downside?
Yeah.
And that was one of the books I read during COVID, and that was the sort of the paramount thing that just changed my thinking, which is focus on what you can do, don't worry too much about
Yeah.
what you can't do or what's happened in the past.
You can't control the uncontrollables. The phrase "control the controllables." Yeah, it's only those things that you've got the in your proximity you can control. So don't worry about anything else. And there's a saying that most people try and what they set for a goal in 1 year is always over ambitious, but what they set for 5 years is always under ambitious because you don't think big enough. So when you were first setting up Inc., did you think you'd ever be at the size that you got to?
I was just hoping that we'd get through 1994. I'd had 4 failed businesses by then, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
I had much of a track record.
And what were they?
One was in media, one was in textiles, one was in property. I don't know what the other one was. And I was just, please, I don't want to, my dad was saying, get a proper job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is a proper job. I'm going to make a success of this. And it took us, I think, 2003 when we first sold the business,
Yeah.
before we saw
Yeah.
So that was 94. 9 years before you see any fruits of your labour. Most people won't go 9 weeks without
Exactly.
some success.
We've just been out of a workshop, a 10X workshop, and the resounding message for me is about you've just got to be relentless. And a phrase me and Dan use all the time is, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And it's the people that are successful will just keep going and going and going, and it's that relentlessness for me.
And it takes time.
Yeah.
You can have some short-term wins. You can have people who do really well very quickly, but to be able to consistently do it over a decade, over 2 decades, is really tough. And you've got to have a certain character and a certain belief system that will get you there.
Yeah. And those 4 failed businesses, do you think that was a good thing and it helped you with this business because you learnt from those mistakes and you did the things that worked well, you did more of them? Or do you think it was just a false start and you would have got here anyway?
I think the property failure, I launched an estate agency, real estate as I say over here, in 1988, which was the biggest property crash of the 80s. And I survived 18 months, and I think that helped me through COVID.
Yeah.
Because what I realised was we've all got these qualities in us, threads that we've got, and I realised that back then I didn't worry about everybody else was worrying about. I was like, what can we do and how can we do it and what can we come to market with different products and different ideas?
Yeah.
So even as an 18-year-old kid, I was thinking about things in a different way.
Yeah.
So when COVID came along, as everybody else was sort of burying their head in the sand, I was thinking, what can I do differently?
Yeah.
What can I offer my team? Because the only thing that I can do is look after my team.
Yeah.
So you definitely take some of the learns, and sometimes you learn quicker.
Yeah.
Me, it took, 20 odd years later.
Things like that force you to make decisions you wouldn't normally make or wouldn't rush to make. So we talked about doing commercial podcasts for 5 or 6 years. We talked about doing webinars for 5 or 6 years, and we were always like, yeah, we'll do that at some point. It's a really good opportunity. We'll do it at some point. And then COVID came along, and we didn't have any other way of communicating the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors, because you couldn't go to an exhibition and congress. They couldn't go into hospital. So we didn't have a business model. So we were like, well, if we do webinars and podcasts, they don't have to go to the live events. We launched them within a month, and within 2 months, they were our biggest selling product.
Happy days.
And we'd waited 6 years to do that. So sometimes you just need that kick up the backside to make things happen.
I will say to you that there are things that you're doing that you could do much quicker and much bigger and much brighter. And sometimes when you're doing well, you don't make enough hay.
Yeah.
And I do think it's businesses okay. Well, it's going all right.
Yeah.
Let's just keep sticking. And that's when you've really got to look at yourself and go, no, this is a good season.
Yeah.
A bad season's coming, because they always come. When we're in a good season, we've got to take advantage of that and make sure that we're capitalising on it.
I remember years ago when I was starting off in a business and I wanted to start another business, I was talking to my dad, and he was like, make hay when the sun shines. And it is true, isn't it? People get distracted by other stuff when they think they've sort of made it, and then all of a sudden you're not focusing on what makes you makes you the money, and it all falls apart. So.
And it's your core business. We we did the same thing. We went off and launched shows here, and events here, and you do it for a couple of years, make some money, then you spend the next 2 or 3 years closing it down and questioning the money that you made. And it's like,
it's the entrepreneurial shiny toy syndrome, as I like to call it. You get distracted by the latest shiny toy.
but there are shiny toys, and there's shiny toys. There are toys that within your core business that you should be polishing.
Yeah.
And driving those much harder. And there are those which are off pulse.
Yeah.
Off piste. But the truth is, sometimes, every now and again, one of those turns out well as well.
Yeah. And it's knowing how to prioritise it. And one of the things for me personally at the moment is we've got lots of opportunities. We've just launched in America. We've launched in the Netherlands. We'll come on to football, but there's some football opportunities. But it's having the right people around you. And you mentioned there about the people. And I think we've got very similar philosophies on people. I think you used the phrase leaving them better than you found them. And we talk about creating gold medal winners. And it's taking people from here that wouldn't necessarily have got an opportunity and giving them the opportunity to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And once you do that, and it's a classic Jim Collins good to great, if you build the team around the sort of people you've already got and train them up and build them up, you're going to be much more successful. But it can be quite a slow process. And when you've got all of these opportunities, you're thinking, well, do I want to wait 2 years till that person's ready, or do I take the opportunity now and bring someone from outside? How have you dealt with that over the years?
I mean, everything I've done from business through to sport is all about building great teams.
Yeah.
And you never get it right first off.
Yeah.
You've got to keep evolving, keep investing, keep developing. Some people progress at different paces to everybody else.
Yeah.
As long as they turn up, give you 100%,
Yeah.
and they're making the effort, it doesn't matter about the outcome and the results.
Yeah.
You just need people who are going to be there and be reliable and good for the business.
Yeah.
Good to have around. There are people who've, who don't turn up very often, don't do it, but they do great results. Long term, they're bad for business.
Yeah.
You want people who are all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, we recruit on the values, and I don't care if you're the best person in the world for this job. If you don't align with our values, you're not working here. And we were talking off camera about Mike Keller. When I heard him talking the first time, he talks about it's not about having the best person, it's about having the right person. And that's how you build the good teams. And it's so important to do that. Yeah, we have 4 things we're looking for when someone joins us, and it's pretty much what you said there. It's entire buy-in, give me everything, but buy into the cause that we're trying to work towards. Look after your own shit. So do your job and do it properly. And the problem we often have is because most of the people we recruit are really nice people, they want to help everyone else out. So they spend all day helping other people, then they've got to do their own job at the end of the day, and that's why they end up working late or whatever. And it's like, no, do your job first, then go the extra mile. So if I've done my job and I've done it to the best of my ability and you need some help, I'll come and help you. And then the 4th thing is, they've got to be fun. Life's too short not to enjoy your work. So if we've got those 4 things, we know we're going to have a pretty successful team, and the results will happen as a byproduct of that.
And Alan Hansen is not very well at the minute. He's in hospital, and he always had that saying, which is, you can't win anything with kids.
Yeah.
And and obviously he was wrong, and that's also been part of our, hiring young people, helping them, develop them, train them, coach them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time people don't realise or don't even believe they can achieve certain things.
Yeah.
They think, I'm going to do this. I went to university, I got myself a load of debt and smoked a lot of things I shouldn't have smoked and partied like crazy.
Yeah.
And then they turn up to work and they go, well, this is not quite how I expected it to be. And we've got a different human coming out of colleges now. But there's also this 18 to 20-year-olds, not necessarily in the States, but certainly in the UK, who don't want to go to university, don't want to get themselves in debt, who want to come and work. And they're the ones I love, because they will work so hard and they don't overthink, they don't over-analyse everything.
Isn't that it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you've got all these things that you need in life, when you can give something back and start helping people like that, as you say, wouldn't have got the opportunity, it's just the most satisfying thing ever. I had a guy email me a few months back saying, just want to thank you for all the opportunities. I'm the first person in my family to own their own house, and I couldn't have done that with all of your support. And it's like, that made me feel good for weeks. And I get stuff like that.
Make you feel good forever.
So often. It's just a lovely thing. Dan, my business partner, works with a couple of boxing charities that help kids that wouldn't necessarily have got the support they've got. I do some stuff with a social enterprise out in Copenhagen, and it's just giving back, isn't it? It's just a good thing to do. And it's the law of reciprocity, as our good friend Steve Clark used to always talk to me about. And you do good for people, they're going to do good for you. Generally, that's how it works in life.
But sometimes they don't.
Not always, yeah.
And as long as you're okay with that, again, you got upside and downside. Sometimes you do good for people and they let you down, and you just say thank you very much for your feedback, and off they go.
Yeah. So talking about giving back and doing good, not sure this is exactly that, but you're trying to do good at Eastbourne Borough. Talk us through that. What made you want to buy a football club?
Yeah, what made me want to buy a football club?
I mean, what crazy person would start a business and then get into football?
Obviously Barry's coming to your event, and we'll wax lyrical, but he came and did a talk at the club, and he said to me, I had the club 19 years. It took me 19 years to get my money back. I said, blimey, that wouldn't take me that long. But he goes, I had 5 of my top 10 days in football.
Right.
5 of the best days in my life. And if you think what life that man has lived, it just shows you how much satisfaction you get from sport.
This is Barry Hearn, the Matchroom founder and chairman. So he's been involved in pretty much every sport.
Boxing, snooker, fishing, darts. He's turned them all into super sports. And you get a buzz from it. I mean, this is how I see my role, not just as fixing Eastbourne Borough, and that needed fixing when I went in there. It was, been run by a charity committee for way too long, and had been underinvested in. It was part-time. It was challenging, to say the least.
Yeah.
So to turn a club from a part-time club into a full-time professional football club with professional ambitions, to take it to a league, is something I really wanted to do. But I'm not just about fixing Eastbourne Borough. I'm also about fixing the National League.
Yeah.
The National League is 72 clubs, that are in 3 leagues that lead into the main league. And it's broken.
Yeah.
There's probably half a dozen will make any money. That's only if they've had a good cup run or they sold a player. So you've got 72 really, I'm a bit careful what I say, clever owners. We're not that clever, we're buying football clubs. But in theory, clever business people who've made money in business, who cannot make a success out of football.
Yeah.
And some of it is ego and they get carried away with themselves, but most of them, like me, are trying to run a steady, sensible, prudent ship.
Yeah.
And you still can't make money.
Yeah.
So the game is broken. This is the grassroots into finding our next Premier League superstars. I was very lucky. I've sold a player to the Premier League in my first season. So that was a tick in the box of, what I committed to do. I bought it because I love football.
Yeah.
Since I was 15 years old, I wanted to own a football club. And it was just, the opportunity came, and I thought, listen, I don't want to have regrets. I just want to do things. And at the minute, it's taking away most of my kids' inheritance, but hopefully we'll get it back at some point.
And when I set up my first proper business, it was 2008 recession. I'd just had my first child, just bought a big house, and I pitched this idea to the company I was working at, and they, all the way up to the CEO, to the chairman of the board, and they said, thanks, it's a good idea, but we're not looking for new ideas. And I remember walking out thinking, I don't want to have regrets. This is too good an opportunity not to do. And if I try it and it fails, at least I can say I've tried.
Yeah.
And if I try it and it succeeds, well, brilliant. So it's a win-win. It's like, what's to lose? And you talked about the football clubs struggling with successful business owners. What's the difference? What are the learnings you can take from business that don't get followed in football, and why?
The fundamentals are the same, by the way.
Yeah.
It's people, and it's people.
Yeah.
The only difference is if you have a bad employee in an office, you can sack them.
Yeah.
Footballers have fixed contracts, you can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
If they get injured, you still got to pay them. There's no sick pay. So the nuance is a little bit. If you're losing, fans don't come.
Yeah.
you can't affect the revenues in the same way as in the business. If you have a bad week in business, okay, you make it up next week or the week after. You can always catch up.
Yeah.
In football, if you lose 2 or 3 games on the trot,
Yeah.
you'll never get in those points back.
Yeah.
So it's those are the only 3 real differences.
Yeah.
Right. And I never budgeted to sack a manager.
Yeah.
I never budgeted for. I think we had 22 injuries at one point, which was the most of any league.
Yeah.
I never really budgeted player sales. So you have some ups and you have some downs. So the fundamentals are the same. If you've got a bunch of people who all want to achieve together and want to come together as a group,
Yeah.
and we started off and we thought we had that, and we had it at the very beginning, and then we had all these injuries, and then you had lots of lone players, and then you had a mixture of the people who started and new people, and it just lost its way.
Yeah.
And then we pulled it all back together, and the last 11 games we lost once.
Yeah.
And that was, everyone knew what their job was, everyone knew what they had to do, everyone turned up and gave 100% and helped each other.
Yeah.
We brought in a few experienced heads who helped the younger players.
Yeah.
And the euphoria at the end of it was unbelievable. It's like we won the league.
Yeah. Well, I popped down to see you at Braintree.
You were there?
Yeah, I was seeing how happy everyone was then. So we talked about taking lessons from business to football. Are there things you've learnt in football that you can now apply to your business?
There's something that I noticed in football, which is they call it's self-preservation.
Yeah.
And I guess it happens in business as well, where everyone stops worrying about what we're doing and they start protecting themselves.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to get fired, or I don't understand that, I don't want to make a mistake. So instead of passing the ball, they hoof the ball. They stop taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite interesting. And I'm starting to look at it now is, who in this organisation is, self-preserving and not actually doing what their job is.
Yeah.
They're trying to get through to payday and
Yeah.
and they'll go again next
Drifting.
month. Yeah.
Yeah. And what have we got for the next 10 years for Simon Leslie?
Well, I want to keep building this Reach TV into something, into a behemoth, because it is a fantastic business.
Yeah.
I want to see Eastbourne Borough men's and women's as league teams.
Yeah.
And I want to build a stadium in Eastbourne and, make it something that the town is proud of. It's probably one of the biggest towns in the UK that doesn't have a professional league team.
Yeah.
And it's, even with the water around it, it's still 130,000 people, I think, in Eastbourne. So I just want to see that succeed. I want to keep seeing my kids succeed. They're all building up great careers, and I think the next 10 years is going to be super exciting.
Yeah.
And we're going to have more challenges like we've had in the last decade.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll come through smiling and shining and do our best to help as many people as we can on the way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to thank you for today. I want to thank you for being one of our speakers at the Summer Ball that we do every year. So we've got yourself, we've got Tim Story, Barry Hearn and Mike Keller. So it's going to be a fantastic day.
It'll be unbelievable.
It's going to be brilliant. And I want to thank you for being an inspiration for me. Our paths have followed similar trajectories in the playing football, getting into media and then buying football teams. And you've been ahead of me on that curve. So it's been great following you and having you there to pick your brain. So thank you.
Well, there's a rule, right? And I say this to anybody, is find somebody who's a year ahead of you, not too far ahead of you, because if it's, I did that 10 years ago, everything's changed, but, I am really just that little bit ahead.
Yeah.
And I have it on my LinkedIn. I'm not better than you, I'm just ahead of you.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just there, and, you've got to take advantage of that, because all the things that you're doing now, Miami, football, no, I've done them all.
Similarities there, aren't there?
Dance.
Where are you at in your next office? Just so I can start looking already.
But it's true, is right. If you can find somebody in your career, in your life, who's a little bit ahead of you, who's doing what you want to do, then they'll help you, because they understand the law of reciprocity, and they understand that the more that you help others.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course you can.
Why are you buying a football club then? You've seen the pain and suffering.
A bit like you, it's a childhood dream. I was club captain at university. Well, I started off as a captain of my village team, and I ended up managing them. I always liked the off the field stuff as much as the field, and I spent 4 years at university, failed my second year, and then left without a degree. But we were the first team in London to have a sponsor. We were the first team in London to have a UEFA coach, because I just loved doing all of that, and that's what excited me. And I've just always wanted to do it. And I've got a business coach that I've used for 12 years or so. And the very first session we sat down, he asked me a question. He said, if you win the lottery tonight and it's topped up every single night, so you never need money, and you've done given money to charity, and you've travelled the world, and you've looked after your family, and you've done all those things, what's going to get you out of bed tomorrow? And I said to him, well, I'm too old to be a professional footballer. We'll forget the fact I was never good enough, but we'll say I'm just too old.
I agree, yeah. I concur.
Therefore, I'm probably not going to be a professional football manager. So the next best thing would be to own a football club. So on that day, we said, right, then build your business to be the vehicle to allow you to do that. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
Pleasure.
Good to see you.